Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another installment of Media Post webinar series. I'm Mike Winkleman, Content Director for Bespoke by Media Post, and we have a great presentation and panel discussion for you today, put together by our friends at Reveal. Media Post webinars bring together the media, marketing, and advertising community to learn more about the methodologies and technologies that make effective business possible across a variety of categories, brought to you by our industry's top solutions providers, marketers, and practitioners. Leading today's webinar will be Dan Dillon, Reveal CMO, who will be joined by Reveal Senior Marketing Manager, Laura Conway, and Jacob Michaelis, Chief Strategy Officer at Dave Creek Media. Their focus, using the big three, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, to maximize store traffic and holiday sales, will be on shifting consumer buying patterns and the ways in which retailers and media buying agencies have adapted in their search for high-quality audiences, experimenting and testing whenever possible. With social media ads more effective than ever, it's critical, especially with the holiday season approaching, to understand how capitalizing on the leading social media ad platforms can help drive foot traffic to your stores and to your clients' locations. This is great, important, and incredibly relevant information, and I, for one, have been looking forward to hearing what they've got to tell us. Before we get started, just a reminder, after the presentation, we'll have some time for a Q&A session. You can submit your questions at any time during the presentation in the question box that you'll find on the GoToWebinar interface on the right of your screen. With that, let's bring in Dan to get things going. Dan, take it away.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the introduction. It's so great to be with everybody today. I thought I'd just jump in right off the bat and let you all know that we presented this on the road recently. Laura and I did, and we're super grateful to have Jacob with us today to round out this presentation with real world case studies. So what I want to do is just walk through a quick agenda with you all, and this way you can put faces with names. I suspect Laura is probably a dead giveaway here, but now you know who Dan is and who Jacob is. Walk you through a quick agenda, and then we'll kick things off with some practical tips, some context setting, and then, like I said, Jacob's going to round out the webinar today with real world case studies on using TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook to drive last minute store traffic to your retail outlets, your retail locations, or if you're an agency, to your clients' retail locations. So with all that, very quickly, let's do some intros, guys. I'm Dan. I look after marketing for Reveal Mobile. I've been with the company for a little over 2 years and have great fun driving pipeline, awareness, all the good marketing words for a really interesting innovative business that enables people to use location data to get more value out of their paid media spend. And with that, Laura, go ahead and intro yourself.
Yes, hi everybody. I work with Dan on a mighty team of two for the marketing department at Reveal. We work together on most things, but what I like to focus on especially is coming up with different kinds of audience and campaign ideas, either with our current customers or to create content for hopefully eventually getting some new customers. But I like to be able to put what we really specialize in, which is geofencing, into real world examples. That's part of my favorite things to do. What about you, Jacob?
Yeah, so my name is Jacob Michaelis. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Dave Creek Media. We are a marketing agency located in Central Arkansas, and we help businesses grow by connecting what their customers need to the solutions they provide. We have a proprietary connected marketing architecture framework that we put together, and in our first phase of that framework is called Captivate, and we use location-based audiences regularly to help our clients find that target audience that they're after and be able to get that message started to bring them into that world and start that customer journey. So that's what we're doing every day. Dave Creek Media just started franchising recently. Digital marketing agency franchising may seem kind of odd. We're trying to break new ground there. And I'm actually on the way to New Orleans right now for a conference. And I'm super excited to be on this webinar today with Laura and Dan, and to be able to help you guys understand how we can leverage this location-based audience data in real measurable ways for whether it's your business or your clients' businesses.
It's awesome to have you with us, Jacob. Thanks for making the time mid-journey. So you can see on your agenda, folks, just a couple things we're going to cover today, but they're substantive topics, each one of them. They should provide you with really tactical takeaways that you can hang up from this webinar and implement, frankly, later today if you wanted to. So we'll set some context around where consumers' heads and hearts are at the moment. We're going to lay out a little bit of just blocking and tackling around social media and how it's dominating advertising, especially during this holiday season yet again. We're also going to reveal a little bit around who's doing what on which platform. We all seem to think we know what Facebook does and who's on Instagram and what TikTok's all about, but we have some good data points around more specifics there. It may surprise you. And then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the webinar, if you will, or just the potatoes, if that's your thing. We're going to show you how to drive foot traffic to stores, and we're going to give you real-world campaign examples, both from our own experience at Reveal Mobile, and then more importantly, from Jacob's experience at Dave Creek Media, an agency that works with all kinds of clients to drive foot traffic. And then, of course, as Mike said at the top of the webinar, we want to get to your questions. So anytime you have questions in your mind, just pop them into the box and we'll jump in. So quick context setting. This year's holidays are going to be merry and bright. So NRF just recently released some data a few weeks ago forecasting that retail sales this holiday season are going to be hitting record highs, nearly $860 billion. This is just US, of course, US money, which is a 10% jump over 2020. And we all know, of course, 2020 was one of those very idiosyncratic years for all kinds of reasons, but there was tremendous growth according to Bain. You can see at the bottom of your slide, Bain is showing a good, healthy jump in both brick and mortar and e-commerce sales in 2020, that darker shade of green being e-commerce. And then 2021 forecast by Bain is right at about 800 billion, same as the NRF. And the one thing I want to call out on this slide is the ratio of light green to dark green. So the bottom part of that chart in the lighter green shade are all the people who are visiting your brick and mortar locations and shopping for pots, pans, clothes, mattresses, cars, iPod, you name it, right? They're doing it in person because we all like retail therapy, especially now, right? And then that dark shade at the top is what we're all doing online. So even with the enormous amount of news coverage on growth in e-commerce, it still only makes up about 20, maybe 22% of total retail sales in the US. So this webinar is really going to be covering that bottom portion of the bar, which of course is the lion's share of retail sales in 2021. I had to think of the year. So here's where our sort of heads and hearts are relative to how we're shopping, why we're shopping. 82% of us, this is US data from Uberall, actually American Express, or their data analytics service called Amex Trendex. 82% of us are shopping in stores, even as the pandemic sort of, ebbs and flows, right? We're reading the headlines, but we're going out and shopping anyway, which is frankly right in line with the portion of retail sales that are happening in brick and mortar. And why we're doing it is because it puts us in the holiday spirit, right? 75% of us, excuse me, shop locally at our mom and pop stores because it makes us feel excited about the holidays to come, spending time with loved ones, seeing family we haven't seen for a long time. So we really are patronizing those stores in large numbers. And then here's the interesting thing, even when it's less convenient or more expensive, we're still going to the store because we just want to have that tactile, experiential hour, 2 hours in our weekend where we can say, I went to this place, I saw this stuff, you should check out, this new line or this new release or this new service, whatever the case might be. So you can see, even with, obviously vaccines rolling out and people feeling a little safer out in the world, we're still shopping in huge numbers. About 6 months ago, Reveal Mobile produced a study and it asked digital marketers, just like everybody on this webinar, what channels we all use to drive traffic to both online stores and physical stores. And you can see it's no contest, right? Everybody who runs marketing campaigns or paid media, for that matter, is plowing a ton of money into social media, both to drive in-store sales in the blue and online sales in the orange. And then everything else is really, material, a distant second place. So the focus of today's webinar, of course, is on social, knowing it's the 800-pound gorilla. And I'm going to transition things over to Laura here, and she's going to walk us through sort of the different channels we're going to talk about.
Yes, so these are the major social media platforms that a lot of you are advertising on, I'm sure. As users as well, I know that you see a lot of ads, and you can see that Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn all have roughly 20% of the posts that you see are all ads. Twitter's a close second after those main three. But we also want to talk about TikTok here, because TikTok has really, taken off over the last 2 years or so, and it's definitely not nearly as saturated as these other channels are. So there's a lot of opportunity to get in front of your audience using this platform. So we have a quick poll for you. We are wondering if you advertise on TikTok today. So just go ahead and select one of those options, please, and then we'll show the results afterwards. We'll give you a couple of minutes, and we're going to talk a little bit more about TikTok ads too. So if it's definitely something that you've been considering, we're going to show you how easy it could be if you are a little nervous about a new platform. Great, yeah, cool. So it looks like most of you are either already doing it or considering it soon, but I'm not surprised that almost 50% have said no. So let's dive in and we can talk about some different ways to advertise on these different platforms, including TikTok. So just a quick overview about Facebook and who's on it. You can see the monthly active users in the US and how they kind of break down by different demographics. I think it's a little bit interesting that it's 56% male on that platform, and the largest group is definitely 25 to 34, which are millennials really, and it took off when millennials were coming of age into that platform, so it makes a lot of sense as to why you see the largest chunk there. And then on Instagram, it's slightly more female oriented, or at least the users are, with millions of subscribers per month. And again, millennials are the largest users of Instagram as well. And then when it comes to TikTok, I don't know about you, but I definitely think of that as kind of a younger platform where, definitely 10 to 19-year-olds, maybe up to about 25-year-olds are spending a lot of time on there. But when you look at the breakdown across the US of users, 88 million of the users out of the 130 total in the US are over the age of 20, which means that they probably have jobs, they probably have their own expendable income, they don't need to ask their parents for a credit card or something to buy something online. So there's definitely a lot of people that you can advertise to that will actually convert from your TikTok ads. So just a little argument pro TikTok advertising. So here's another one to really drive it home. So Facebook and Instagram have been, are really well established. You'll see 41% of Facebook users have purchased something that they've seen on their app as an ad. And I think that's really interesting and sounds right about on if I were to guess what the number would be. Instagram is a lot higher, but personally, I find and buy a lot of things from Instagram as well. I find new products that are really tailored toward me and where I am in my life too, which I think is really interesting because we know that personalization is key when it comes to these kind of ads. So 72% of users have said that they've bought something from something that they've seen on an app. And then TikTok is surprisingly right in the middle there at 49%, which means that half of the users have bought products that they've seen on TikTok. So another argument that you should be considering TikTok as a place to place your ads. So now we get a lot of questions about short video ads. And so we just wanted to break down the difference between TikTok and Instagram Reels, because that's both where the different video ads can be placed. So TikTok is the original short video platform. Their algorithm is based on content preferences as opposed to anything else really. So it's really strong with what you like to watch. You see a lot more of that. And it's definitely the main use of the app as well. Meanwhile, Instagram Reels is an exact copycat of TikTok. So the algorithm is based on who you follow as opposed to necessarily the content that you watch. While they are implementing that, it's much more based on who you follow. And it's definitely not the main reason that people use Instagram. Most people just scroll through their feed and look at that, even though they have been recently adding the Reels to their feed too, but ads are not showing up there yet. So just a little breakdown of the difference between the two.
And I just read recently, Laura, that Meta is paying content creators upwards of $10,000 to produce reels on Instagram because they're just getting their lunch eaten by, of course, TikTok, where everybody is. But they're dying for short form content in the same way that YouTube Shorts is dying for content. So Instagram is really trying to find its place amidst all that short content. Great breakdown of those two platforms. I appreciate that. So with that as the backdrop, with sort of the social media, primer, sort of as our backdrop, let's transition over to a more focused conversation about geofencing specifically. And just by way of defining terms, there's all kinds of definitions swirling around for geofencing. But for the sake of this conversation going forward, I want to define it actually pretty simply and straightforwardly. The way we think about geofencing for the sake of this webinar is drawing a virtual perimeter, virtual boundary around a physical structure or just a physical place. Could be a parking lot, could be a park, could be a used car lot at a dealership, you name it. And then capturing mobile devices that enter that perimeter. Not advertising to them once they cross, but advertising to them after they have crossed and maybe gone home for the day, or they were there last week, or they were there last month, or frankly, maybe they were there last year on Black Friday, and you want to market to people, for Black Friday purposes. So this is really about marketing to people who have been in the past, as recently as yesterday, at a physical store or a physical location for the sake of showing real world intent. So with that as kind of course, I got some good holiday logos up there where people like to shop for their pets and their loved ones and drop in for a coffee break. So with that as the backdrop for defining geofencing, let's roll into some campaign examples and have Jacob take the stage with just one more context setting slide here for you. If you're wondering about location data as a signal, it is a mature, well-adopted technology. Marketers across all disciplines are using location data for all kinds of reasons. You can see here, nearly 90% of us are using location data in campaigns today, according to Mobile Marketer, the makers, the publishers of Industry Dive, if you read that, or Retail Dive. And that, of course, runs the gamut. That's everything from geo-targeting cities or countries on Google Ads at the far left end of the continuum, all the way over to the far right end of the continuum, which is geofencing Best Buy or Kohl's or PetSmart or the local pizza chain or the movie theater, whatever the case might be. So we're going to be talking more of that right side of the continuum, where we're getting very surgical and very granular in terms of strategy, audience building, targeting, and attribution, which we'll roll into here in a moment. And you can see also personalization is really key, right? More than 60% of marketers are using location data to drive a more personalized brand experience. And eMarketer just published some research around this. Regardless of your demographic or your generation, I suppose, from Gen Z all the way up to baby boomers, people expect brands to know who they are, where they've been, what they bought, what they like, where they buy, etc. It's just a matter of sort of current consumer behavior. So location is great for driving that personalized experience. Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting just to call that out, because on the surface, we think about, we want to hold our data really close and we don't want to share it. And we get frustrated when people ask for data that we have. However, on the flip side, we expect everything to be tailored and personalized now. So I think you touched on this before, or we touch on it in a lot that we do, but we talk about the balance of convenience versus privacy. And I just think that that's really interesting that it just spans the generations now, that everybody expects theirs to be tailored, their information to be tailored to them. So just something to bring up.
Spot on, and it works. So marketers would not spend money if it didn't work.
Yeah,
and that's the third bucket here on this slide. We're spending nearly $39 billion on location-based ads. Well, this is a 2023 number. This is a forecast for 11 months from now, right? So we would not be spending upwards of $39 billion if it wasn't working, because frankly, we're spending today $40 billion on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat. So we're spending about the same money we're spending on paid social as we are spending using location data to fuel campaigns. So pretty heavy duty threshold there. With that, I've got one more poll question for you before I transition things to you, Jacob, and that's frankly about geofencing. Are you currently running campaigns that you would consider geofenced or geo-targeted or location-based? You could use any word you want, really. Tell us where you stand on this, and we're happy to share the results once you're done. And then we're going to walk you through, or Jacob is going to walk you through a series of best practices for targeting and measuring using location data. All right, let me close the poll here and see where we landed. Fully 60% of folks are using geofence data. That's fantastic. So you're in the right place. Obviously, this next portion of the webinar is going to give you tactics you can just walk away with and use right away. Nearly 30% are not, so you might be swayed here in the next few minutes. And then 13% are on the fence, which is fine, right? We're not looking to determine things one way or the other, but it's great to see sort of where you all land in terms of your own practices. So with that, Jacob, walk us through your own experience with this.
Absolutely. So, at Dave Creek Media, like I said, we've spent, our team, we manage north of $10 million in ad spend pretty consistently. The holiday season, it always goes up. And I think as digital marketers, it's important to point out a few things. The holiday advertising season has always been competitive. I have a few examples here on the right. So back in 1980, if any of you were around 1980, Sears for decades published this wish book that was there. It's like the Christmas catalog, right? So the ad space or the available space was about the size of a mailbox, and they would cram this super thick catalog in the mailbox, and kids would just love to go through that book, turn the pages, mark the ones that, the things they wanted under the tree. You see the cover of the book, it's pitching that perfect Christmas morning spirit and attitude. And like I said, this is massive thick book that you would go through and be able to comb through and pick out all your favorite holiday stuff. More recently, a lot of the mail pieces, I know that chart that Dan showed, a lot of the off digital platforms have gone way down. A lot of these Black Friday circulars still go out, but it's very much just to the point. It's just, what's the deal? What's going to get me in the door? Just really catching your attention quickly and then move on, because our attention spans obviously have gone down quite a bit. And then this last one here at the bottom is kind of my favorite. So, Thanksgiving used to be this day kind of reserved for some family time, and then everybody would kind of gear up for the next day for Black Friday deals. And so, in TV land, there's a lot of football happening, a lot of sports going on Thanksgiving Day. Those commercials, those ad spots are also highly coveted. And you can see that Walmart here promoting, after you finished your second helping of turkey and dressing, you and your girlfriends can proudly go and hit the store and do some holiday shopping. So they keep pushing that line closer and closer. Down here at the bottom on the left-hand side of your screen, this is typically reserved for whenever people think about the consumer side of shopping, but I tend to look at it as how media buyers act during Q4 into the holiday season. I mean, honestly, if you haven't been planning your Q4 strategy for the past couple of months, it might be a little bit late to get your ducks in a row, but hopefully some of the stuff we covered today will kind of help move you down the right direction. But a few things are constant here. For one, costs are going to go up no matter what. All the big players are pouring tons of money into advertising. Dave Creek Media tailors to really the small, medium-sized business. We don't get a lot into the enterprise level. And so the strategies that we use are very targeted towards bringing some of those enterprise level tactics down to the small, medium businesses and giving them a fighting chance, especially in a holiday season when ad costs, will go up no matter what. So one of our strategies is, instead of competing on buying power, you can actually just be more strategic about who you're actually putting your ad in front of. So if you can improve your targeting and being a little more strategic, a little more thoughtful about who you're placing your ad in front of, then it might help you get a more direct message. Because remember, regardless, digital marketing, traditional, the foundation of marketing is a vehicle to communicate your solution or your businesses or your client's solution. And so as we're trying to find these vehicles, and in this case, it's 3 social media platforms, that vehicle is going to be the one we use, but it's who are we getting to on the other side, and the location-based ads that we can build or the audiences that we can generate are going to be key to being able to get in front of the right people. So today, I'm going to go through 3 quick strategies that you guys can use, and along with a case study that we've used at Dave Creek Media successfully. So since a lot of you guys are using location-based or geofence, this should be pretty good here. Be sure and compare your notes, right? If there's things you haven't thought of in the past, maybe make a note of it today and see if you could get your team to leverage that this coming holiday season. So the first one here is to simply retarget past customers. That might seem like a no-brainer, but a lot of geofence marketing, at least some stuff that I've seen, when people, one thing we also can think of as a constant as media buyers, the people that are buying ads for our companies or our clients, there is essentially universal access to low-cost advertising through digital platforms. Facebook's going to make it easier than ever. TikTok is a little bit of a wild west right now as far as getting your ads placed. So it's actually pretty easy to get on TikTok. There's a lot fewer restrictions going on right now, but anyone pretty much can throw an ad up. And so some people think about geofencing and they think about just drawing a radius, and it can be a 1 mile radius, and that's going to be geofence. For people that are traveling to an area, people might do a little bit more location based and kind of build out their own polys and frame things. But one thing people don't always think about is the foot traffic that came into your store. It's already a warm audience, whether that was last season, meaning the summer season, or whether that was last year, as Dan said, during Black Friday. That's a warm audience that you can actually just retarget. And if you're using that foot traffic as a location-based audience, then you can build a list of people that have a few key things going for them. Number one, they already know your brand. So the messaging can be a little more direct. The know, like, and trust factor is already there. So like that previous ad with the Target Black Friday circular, you could just go straight to the deals. There could be doorbusters. There could be Black Friday specials. They could last the whole weekend. It could go all season long. But being able to use the audience that already knows you and put a message in front of them, we usually consider that low-hanging fruit just because the conversation's so much shorter. That customer journey's already tightened up a little bit. They've experienced your business, they've opened their wallet, and they've given you money. So why not put some ads out there to them where you can actually get in front of them and let them know what you're doing this season? Maybe they came in earlier, maybe they haven't been back since all the COVID stuff was happening, and they're getting more comfortable, as Dan said, getting out and shopping again. And you want to remind them that, hey, you guys came back here, you've been here before, why not go ahead and come back? So the case study that I have here of a brand that we work with, they're a small clothing boutique, and they were doing a foot traffic retargeting campaign. And what we've noticed from this is we try to do this in trends. So retail stores, especially clothing stores, have more of like a seasonal, like a quarterly flip in what's in store on the racks. And so we try to do things in about a 3-month window when we run campaigns for them. Going into the holiday season, we're looking at people that came in maybe during the summer or even the previous season back before the summer, and we're just reminding them that, hey, you've been here before. Wardrobes are cycling. It's time to come in for the holidays and find some great gifts. So we fenced their location, and they get on average about 2,000 or 3,000 people a month coming into the store. And so we had a decent audience to work with. And when we retargeted those, we noticed an 18% lift in foot traffic month over month. And what I mean by that is every single month, the number continued to increase once we launched this foot traffic campaign. So a few key takeaways there, especially with iOS restrictions and some privacy things being changed, as Laura mentioned, people, they want it to be personalized, but they're being almost bombarded with, hey, be sure and turn off your privacy tracking, make sure you're staying anonymous. To me, that sort of limits that personalized experience that we all crave. I personally don't care to see an ad for, say, feminine products. That's just, it's not going to get me to buy necessarily. So I like having things tailored to me. And if you're looking at website traffic or things like that, then there's an opportunity missed there. Whereas with when you frame the space and get that location data through those device IDs, you build the audience there, you are able to get the message right in front of them. And we were able to see that traffic increase consistently in 3 straight months there. So it's a really great idea to just be able to think about your client or your own business and think about talking to the customers that you already have. So first tip, retarget past customers. Our second smarter targeting tip is actually looking at it from an outward perspective. So it's figuring out where your ideal customer or your client's ideal customer hangs out. Where are they going? And this doesn't have to be a competitor location. This could just be something more, if you know your ideal customer, and this may seem a little bit like marketing 101, But I think oftentimes we get distracted by just digging. We just have our we're in the weeds in the platform. We're just pumping out creative. It looks cool. It's on brand, so we run with it. But really thinking about, what does the message say? What does the copy say? What do we know about who we're actually targeting, and where are they spending their time? You can glean a lot of really helpful information off of that if you take a step back and just remind yourself of who your ideal customer is. And again, you can have multiple buyer personas, multiple ideal customers, but for the sake of your campaigns, be really strategic about who it is that you're going after and what you're going to be targeting. So if you know these things, then a strategy would be to fence the locations where the ideal customer hangs out and then introduce your brand. So a little bit different from a creative side than the retargeting. These people might know you, they might have gone to your store, they may not know you. So if they're at Anthropologie and they've not experienced your store yet, but you know that they would likely enjoy that experience, then you can introduce your brand to them, and they're already going to know that, like, oh yeah, this is totally my vibe. I could see myself going and shopping there. And so you're able to build audiences off of that. And one thing I want to mention, I have Target on here as a larger retailer. Now we know that Target is a very big store. There's a lot of departments in there. And you might even get so nuanced as to say, well, the Target in my location has the women's department in this section of the store. And through polygons, we could actually almost segment inside the store at the department level and be able to pull only that audience. So the larger the store, obviously the more foot traffic goes through that store, and being able to go down at the department level could actually give you some really good insight on traffic that you can pull to, and it tightens that audience up even more and gets even more strategic there. A case study that I have here is another one of our clients. They have a vendor marketplace, which sounds a little quirky. So think about an Etsy, but in brick and mortar form. So all of these local artisans and creators are getting spaces in this larger store, and it's a very unique shopping experience. So they're launching 1 to 2 new locations throughout the Mideast and to Eastern region every single month. And so one of our strategies is to set up what we call ICP places campaigns for these new store launches. So there's not a brick and mortar established right off the bat, but we're able to go back and say, okay, they don't have foot traffic just yet, or it's very little because they may have just now opened. And so how do we go out and find their ideal customer and introduce the new brand? We use this ICP places campaign. We frame these other locations, again, competitors or not. Starbucks is actually one of our places we frame for those areas, and we're able to draw that traffic, put the brand in front of them, and show them, hey, here's a new brand in town, a new place you might want to check out. We kind of show them what it's all about, and the results down here speak for themselves. Actually increased from their previous client with a 23% lift in foot traffic month over month for 3 months. Now, Dan and I, leading up to this, we kind of went back and forth on that. The retargeting traffic on the previous client was actually a little lower. And one thing that we discussed was, you've got kind of this bright, shiny object. It's a new store and it's kind of a new thing to check out. That could bring some people in, but there's also that honeymoon phase you have to watch out for. So if you're able to endure beyond that honeymoon phase by going further out into your reach of getting the local audience aware of your brand. So we're talking about further back in the awareness stage. They don't even know who you are yet. They're not ready to know, like, and trust you. And so as you're trying to gain more of that consumer awareness and get your brand recognition up, this is a great way to do that. And as you keep those campaigns out in the marketplace, then you're able to see the foot traffic come in. We've had a really successful time with this, and the client's really excited, not only for bringing in the consumer side, but we're actually able to target people. I didn't mark it on the map here. Some of the craft places like a Michael's, if you're in an area that has a Michael's craft store, or a Hobby Lobby in some regions of the U.S., being able to even frame those spots for people that are more crafty creator style, we've actually been able to bring in vendors to this marketplace. So think about, from your business, whether it's B2B or B2C, think about who you're targeting and what the appropriate action would be. Make sure the messaging's on point, but just think outside of your box, meaning your brick and mortar, your store, and look for audiences elsewhere. So tip number 1, look for your existing customers and retarget them. Tip number 2, focus on your ICP and where they actually would hang out. Our third targeting tip is to increase your reach with a lookalike audience. Now, if most of you are already doing some geofence marketing, I'm sure you've all leveraged that, whatever the percentage was, 50-something%. I'm sure you've all leveraged lookalike audiences based on a custom audience list from your clients list or traffic to the site, what have you. So, lookalike audiences are nothing new. But one thing that we found really successful is to do a combination of the previous two tactics. Now that might seem like a gimme third tip, but the results are really incredible. So if you frame your own brick and mortar or your client's brick and mortar in conjunction with your ideal customer and the places they hang out, you frame those places, put it all together. That one audience is going to represent a core group of people that may, be a baseline. But then if you leverage the platform and create that lookalike audience, you can see a dramatic increase in reach. So the example here is one of our clients that has a group fitness studio. So group fitness, meaning they don't have machines. It's just more of like the 10, 16, 20 people that are doing workouts together with an instructor leading the classes. That's all they do. So the foot traffic into her brick and mortar, into the client's brick and mortar, is relatively low every month because she has a lot of repeat traffic with her repeat gym goers. Imagine workout routines, you're going to show up 3 or 4 times a week. So the actual foot traffic just by itself wouldn't support an audience on its own. Facebook's minimum is around 1,000 to be able to do that. If you layer that with other ICP audiences, including a local competitor that could be a larger box, in this situation, LA Fitness is not too far away from their location, you can grow that audience quite a bit. And what we were able to do was take an audience from our location-based information. That audience yielded about 1,150. And then because of the lookalike power, we expanded it 12x to 14,000 people, which gives us a really broad, a really great audience to talk to. And Laura mentioned before in another call that we had just about it's the law of cost per million, right? So or cost per thousand. So as your audience goes up, your CPMs can go down, but you don't want to go too broad where you're having a lot of collateral damage just for the sake of cost savings, right? So we know the costs are going to go up no matter what, but if you're able to be targeted about it on a certain scale, the lookalike audience is going to be a really great way to have what you know to be an accurate baseline for your ideal customer and who you want to target, but then let the platform do its work and expand that audience for you. So hitting your retargeting would be, I would say, your top priority, no matter what that is, for your business and that traffic that comes in. Being able to look outside of that, tip number 2, for your where your ICP hangs out, build some more audiences off of that, and then finally layer the two together and be able to launch a lookalike off of that, so you can increase that reach if the client or if your business has a little shy foot traffic to not really get the most robust audience that you can work from.
That is exactly right. I love talking to Jacob because he totally understands what we do and he takes it and runs with it. I love having calls with Jacob because it's awesome to see what Dan and I write content about every day and he puts it into action. It's so great. So I'm going to walk you through an example, soup to nuts. We're going to start with our client and our what kind of audience that we'll build for this client. And then we'll look at some foot traffic attribution reporting to see how our hypothetical campaign went. So we're going to look at Diamonds Direct, since that's since jewelry is one of the largest, categories for gifts. Diamonds Direct is a regional jewelry store. It's where we got our rings from. It's a great little place. So in this high intent audience section here, we're going to look at the direct competitors. So Jared's Jewelry and K Jewelers. And then also we're going to use a custom polygon in Nordstrom in order to capture the Nordstrom jewelry shoppers, as well as retarget our own Diamonds Direct visitors. So after we put that all together, we have about 2,600 people in this little very highly targeted audience. And after we run a Facebook campaign, we'll see how it goes. So this is a quick little video of how easy it is to upload a custom audience to Facebook. This is literally me. I took it of myself uploading it. It's super, super easy to do. You just go into custom audience creation and you upload what's called a customer list. So we work with mobile ad IDs, which is the completely anonymous identifier for individuals smartphone devices. You can also use email addresses or phone numbers if you're using your CRM. However, mobile ad IDs are definitely going to get the people that are not in your CRM. So you're going to get your casual shopper or the person who didn't want to give their email address. You can certainly use a lot more people here. But this is how easy it is. And then you run some creative. So, you know, enticing people to shop, or enticing, in this case, women to go poke their significant others and say, this is what I want, go get it at Diamonds Direct because they have what I want and it better be under the tree. So we'll see how those pieces of creative did. So in this foot traffic attribution report, I love these because it breaks down some really interesting data here. But what I really want to focus on are the 75 conversions that it measured. So out of that audience, 75 people converted, which means that they came back into a Diamonds Direct store. If we say, you know, roughly all of them bought something at an average cost of $2,500, we drove over $187,000 in sales. That's certainly more than this company would have spent on a Facebook advertising campaign. And it definitely seems like they're on the right side of that investment. So I just wanted to show you it's really that easy. All you have to do is think creatively about who you want to target, run some compelling ads, whether it's for about sales or how you're maybe better than the competitors, or just some really sparkly rings in order to catch somebody's attention, and just watch people show back up in your store and spend the money. It's really that easy.
Love it, love it. That brings us to the end of our slide deck, but obviously we want to make sure we have time for questions. So Mike, how do we walk through this?
Okay, so that was great. We have some time for some questions from the audience. A quick reminder for everyone, and I think it's an answer to one of the questions we got as well. A copy of the recording of today's webinar will be sent to all of you via email later today. And Dan, there was a question about whether people could get a copy of the PDF as well, you know, of your deck. Is that possible?
Of course.
Okay, good. Okay, so launching into some questions now for a little while. Dan, you touched on this a tiny bit, but one of the listeners had wondered about ads on Snapchat, because you talked about, you know, so many other platforms, but not that.
Yep, great question. Snapchat is as viable a platform as any of the platforms we talked about on today's webinar. It's a great astute question, because you're obviously thinking about where your core audience spends most of its time. And Snapchat, the good news is, accepts mobile ad IDs just like Facebook, just like TikTok, of course, just like Instagram, which is Facebook. Meta, excuse me. So from a Snapchat standpoint, there is a lot of good data and a lot of good research on using that platform to target very specific audiences. If you're taking, in this case, mobile ad IDs from geofenced properties or geofenced locations, it's almost, I hate to say this, but 6 to 1, half a dozen, because you're hitting people with an account that match that mobile ad ID. So it's either Dan or Jacob or Laura or 100,000 Dans, Jacobs, and Lauras who've all been to the location that is in your sweet spot. So the good news there also is, if it's Snapchat or TikTok or Instagram, there's there's minimal wasted ad spend. You're not, you know, blanketing people based on Facebook's interest algorithm. You're targeting surgically based on people who've shown, of course, real world intent by visiting specific locations. So I apologize for not having more insight on Snapchat for this webinar, but we're happy to follow up directly however we can help with that question.
The only thing I want to add there, Dan, too, sorry, real quick, it is Snapchat does accept those mobile ad IDs, and you can use those custom audiences just like you do on those other ones too. So Dan kind of touched on, he said it's really the same kind of thing, but almost all of those platforms accept those kind of custom ads or custom audiences, including Pinterest and LinkedIn as well.
I would just say from my experience, and Dan brought this up, is about the device IDs. So the point of marketing, again, is the vehicle. If you think your customers hang out on Snap versus TikTok, you know how to test it? The audience IDs that you're getting, that audience list, like Dan said, is people that have walked into that fence. So whenever you load that audience, guess what? Snap is going to do a match. And if they can't match the device ID to a user on Snap, you won't get an ad to that person. But if they're on the platform, then it will serve to them, right? So that, I'm thinking in this point, it's to Dan's point, you could put it up on Snap, and if there's a match rate from that large list you've exported, then it will serve the ad to them. Same thing is on TikTok. So it's not a matter of saying it's going to be an interest base or something that you're hoping that your client's hanging out on Snap. If it matches, it will serve on that platform.
It's a great point.
And that's actually a great lead into the next question, which is, I assume the device ID data is anonymized. If so, what demographic data or profiles do you have on each phone and where the data derived or sourced from?
Want me to take that one, Jacob? Sure thing. So the metadata associated with the mobile ad ID, or MAID for short, is really operating system. And then of course, time and place ID. That's really it. There's no email address, there's no gender, there's no first, last, social, none of that stuff, of course. The idea being that a mobile ad ID is really all you need to reach the audience who has been there. Where it's sourced from, there's any number of apps on an iOS device or an Android device that are consuming location services. And while I don't have a list of all the apps that location services are turned on with, you've probably got them turned on right now for news, weather, sports, couponing, your favorite, restaurant, your favorite retailers. To Laura's point earlier, we value convenience over privacy. Of course, we value privacy. We're not looking to give it away for free, but if it gives us convenience in return, we're willing to give up that data. So frankly, the location data itself is sourced from opted-in mobile devices where you've said, yeah, share my location with this app because I want to know what the temperature is going to be tomorrow, sort of thing.
And I would say it's also like it's not about any other platform, just as far as the anonymity of it. So a device ID or having a lookalike audience as a platform, I might, as an advertiser, I might want to be as accurate as possible, but I don't know if that device ID, that random serialized, letters and numbers equals Laura's phone, and Laura walked in my store last week. I have zero clue about that. I just have a list of random data to the human eye, and the platforms can then build the audience. They know who to connect with and get that match rate going. So I would say in terms of like, as an advertiser, feeling like I have access to your data, I really don't. It's just leveraging the tools that have the access to do the appropriate matches and, serve on the platforms.
That's really well said.
Okay. Yeah. So here's moving in a different direction here. We have a question. Are fake bots affecting social media sales? I've heard 40% or more accounts are fake.
I can say for us personally, just with our clients that we're running considerable amount of ad spend on, we might see an influx in, depending on the objective, we might see an influx of traffic in some cases. But as far as like actual sales, again, it's trying to be very specific about the targeting. And so even if 40% of the accounts happen to be fake that are, interacting or trying to go to a site, we're at Dave Creek Media, we're actually tracking conversions like on platform, or in this case, the foot traffic. So when I go to that retail boutique that I mentioned earlier, and I say, this many people walked in your door when that 12% increase happened last month, bots didn't do that. That was somebody seeing an ad and then they walked through that door. So in that situation, it's not really affecting our spend in such a way that we feel like we're overspending to get to quote unquote real people and kind of sidestep bots. And just from our agency experience. Dan, do you have any insight on that?
No, Jacob, I'm glad you fielded that one. That's perfect. I got nothing to add.
Okay, good. So here's another one. We're already geofencing and things are going well. Do you have any advanced tips for using geofencing?
Laura, I bet you've got some advanced tips, seeing as how you work with customers here and there on best practices.
So Jacob definitely touched on this, but I'm going to break it down. I'm going to really just boil it down to these 3 segments. So, and I hope this is enough. This is enough for you if you really are advanced there. So hopefully you're not just like, yeah, and what, but we'll see. And go ahead and put a follow-up question in there because I like to be challenged with this. So I always talk about the 3 segments to geo-target. So you obviously retarget your current customers. As Jacob said, those are the warmest people. They're, everyone knows that it's the least expensive to keep your customers as opposed to getting new ones. The second category is to win over market share or win over your competitors' customers, and you'll win market share in that way. So talk about how you're better or, better priced or better, however, by geo-conquesting, which that's the word we like to use for that. And the third one is to think outside the box and think about where else your ideal customer goes. So Jacob gave great examples, but the example I always really like to use is if you're Lululemon or some other kind of athletic wear, you're of course going to be retargeting your own customers. You're going to be trying to get Athleta or Gap or Fabletics customers to come buy Lululemon instead. And then you're also going to want to geo-target places like yoga studios or Orange Theory, or even, LA Fitness is one that Jacob had on his list. Thinking outside the box that way, and then being able to run with that. There's an endless amount of different kinds of combinations you can make in that third category. And that's really where I like to dive in with customers. So hopefully that is a good way to think about it. And if not, maybe there aren't any more advanced ways to do it, because geofencing marketing is pretty straightforward as long as you can think creatively when it comes to building your audiences.
And just to build on that answer, Laura, that's fantastic. I love the way you line that out, 1, 2, 3. I would use your geofencing software to tell you where else your clients' customers are going. So, or if you're the brand, if you're the retailer itself, use that geofencing technology to reveal to you, where else are my customers going when they're not shopping with me? Now, it might not be a competitor, it might be a coffee shop, or it might be something totally unrelated. But if you know there's a large overlap or a large affinity between your brand and another brand, go geofence that other brand, seemingly unrelated, but by virtue of that device ID showing up in both of those locations, a large proportion of your ideal customer hangs out at Trader Joe's or whatever the case might be.
So a follow-up question to that came in is, how accurate are the geofences?
I'll take that one. The geofences that we're talking about in this webinar are accurate down to 1 meter. So your geofencing stores and watching the audience you're getting are people who've truly crossed the threshold into your store. And to Jacob's point earlier, you could even, if the store is big enough, if the footprint of the big box is a big enough box, you could geofence just the home and garden section, or just the children's clothing section, or just the grocery section if it's a super Target or something like that. So you can get very specific with a large enough retail footprint. But 1 meter, 5 decimal places on the GPS Latin long is what we're talking about here.
Now, I would say it's like a combination to what Jan, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, in combination to what Laura and Dan both suggested as far as advanced, I don't know, out of the people that are on the webinar today or still hanging around, I don't know if you're advertising your business, if you're advertising for a client, or if you're even thinking about, how can I use this technology to gain new clients as an agency? So we love thinking about the business side of things. I have a very outward focus. So in the holiday season, this is very different maybe than you might think of like a traditional retail, but think about, to Dan's point, a big box store. Lowe's sells Christmas trees. They're usually pretty junk. They're, in tight bundles, and they're mass, stacked in a pile over there. If you frame the outdoor department and advertise maybe a tree farm instead, there's all kind of ways you can do this, right? So thinking about the person in that place, what they're doing, think about the clients that you have, what their ideal customer's doing, and think about other businesses that you think could leverage this kind of stuff. It's almost, I wouldn't say alarming, but once your brain starts thinking about what's possible and how you can use this technology in a very ethical way to advertise to people, the possibilities are really endless if you just kind of have that brainstorming session and kind of let your mind go that direction.
Okay, so we have time for one more audience question, and here it is. Are there any particular verticals or advertisers that are standouts in location-based social media effectiveness? QSR comes to mind for this type of vehicle, obviously. For example, the Taco Bell campaign a while ago where they developed a taco emoji where none existed and it went viral.
Laura, you want to take a swing at this one?
Yeah, so the best types of businesses, at least that top the list of, prioritizing where this works best, is really anything with brick and mortar locations. Preferably something that has at least a few of them. So QSR is a really great example. Whether you are Taco Bell and have thousands of locations across the US, or if you are maybe more of a specialty kind of quick serve, or if you're a restaurant with 40 locations, or if you have a restaurant group maybe that has niche kind of restaurants, but there's several of them, so you can kind of retarget that way. Restaurants work great, gyms work great, any kind of retail, grocery. Those are really the things that we see work the best. We have a lot of auto clients that really like to leverage the program, even though the foot traffic to them is relatively low. They implement different strategies that Jacob was suggesting earlier when you have a smaller, per day or per month audience, to really be able to expand on it and think outside the box there. Am I missing any categories there? But those are, some other ones actually. Travel works well because you can easily find travelers or people who stay in hotels, as well as seasonal or promotional events, like concerts or different kinds of pop-up events, especially with the custom polygon builder. It's easy to do those kind of things, whether it's a concert on the beach or it's a concert at I'm from Boston. We used to call it the Tweeter Center. I don't know what it's called now. That changes hands so many times. And here in Raleigh, we've got Walnut Creek. So you can geofence those locations, or the beach where the Tortuga Music Festival happened in Fort Lauderdale over the weekend. So you can, those are a lot of different categories. I hope that that answers your question.
That's good. So I think that wraps it up for today. One thing I wanted to mention, if you've asked a question that did not get answered, don't worry about it. The folks at Reveal have received all the questions and will respond to each of them directly after the end of the webinar. Thanks again to Dan, Laura, and Jacob for a great presentation, and to the audience for some great questions. Thanks to all of those behind the scenes at Reveal who helped put all of this together. We hope you found the wealth of information they presented helpful and also informative. Stay tuned to MediaPost's website and digital publications in your inbox for more informative webinars that are coming from other valuable MediaPost partners in the weeks and months to come. Thanks so much to all of you for joining today. We'll see you next time, and stay safe. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.